Friends, let's kick off today with a bit of a riddle. What does a Hyundai Motor Group product, specifically the car we are driving today, have in common with the father of all muscle cars, the Pontiac GTO? Give you a second or two to let that run through your brain. Bist du fertig? Ich auch. The answer, you take your hottest engine, your hottest and newest engine, and you drop it into your mid-size car. However, there's a twist. It's not the biggest engine. So today, let's unpack how the old muscle car trick works in Korea. I know you're excited. Do you want me to tell them or do you want to tell them? Okay, it's up to me apparently. We have huge news to share with you. The temperatures here in Southern California have finally dropped to the point where the boss man can return to set, and none too soon, because there is a personal connection between you-know-who and this specific car here, serial ending in 148. And it's something we never discuss. It's the color. Yeah, we discuss color when it's like a weirdo name, like deep, dark, frozen brown metallic like that BMW was, but never like my favorite color, blue, because you can imagine what his favorite color is. In this one, it's hard to describe. Like if I were to tell you before you see the car, there's going to be a pale blue metallic and you're going to love it, you'd look at me like there's maybe that California sunshine's a bit too much for you. But then you see it in person, because pictures, this doesn't even do it justice. But then you see it in person with the trim, the black fairing on the mirrors, the trim changes, the color here, the nickel plating, or really the color of nickel on the wheels, and then the gray grille, which sets it apart from the non-sport models. It really makes this car in any color pop, but this specific color. And that's where we have the relation to you-know-who here. His eyes, see the color of his eyes? The name of the color of his eyes, polar ice. Take a wild guess what the name of that color is. Okay, so today our job is not to unpack whether this thing scoots along. We've already done that in two separate exercises, once with a Lotus engineer. What we need to unpack is, does the hotter engine, the newer, more trick, high-feature engine, does that deliver power, and if so, how? So with that, let's come around this nice turn here. We've got a nice straight coming up, which we could use with the turbos, put our foot into it. And the difference that you notice immediately is not that it's faster. Yeah, it's faster. What you notice immediately is how it delivers power. Let's come around this nice declining ready to turn, elevation change to put our foot into it, and it delivers power so much sharper. It comes at a much lower RPM, the engine speed's lower, so the car, all of a sudden, that tuning that our friend Matthew Becker from Lotus kicked in here, it just makes all the difference in the world that we now have the thrust to take advantage of the suspension. So basically, it now can cash the checks that it's been writing for the past 2 years. So of course, the boss man was doing a bit of research, and he now wants to focus this discussion on comps, specifically of the cars this would be directly compared to, an E-Class and a 5 Series. But not the usual horsepower and torque, no, he wants to focus on dimensions. Now follow me for a minute on this one, because there's a method to his madness. Let's take the E-Class for a minute. That's kind of the runt of the litter of these three. The wheelbase on that one is 115.7 and the overall length is 194. Compare that to a 5 Series, wheelbase on that is 117.1 and overall length 195, so just a bit bigger. This, not huge amounts different, but enough difference where the wheelbase 118.5 and the length 196.5. Now those numbers are hugely important, mainly because it has a big impact on the driving dynamics. Little refresh of some math here. Longer wheelbase translates to more supple ride. Not exactly the best solution or best tool for the job for these roads. So while I have suggested the G80 or the Genesis, Hyundai Genesis in the past, especially this generation, when people ask me for suggestions of a mid-size luxury car, this is always top of my list, but not because of the way it goes around corners like this, I'm not saying it's bad going around corners or not behaved going around, or really as a tool for driving dynamics for someone who drives aggressively. But what's happened now is by putting more power into this chassis, you notice the shortcoming a bit more. And really the big thing you notice when you push it hard through a turn like this is not that it leans, it just squats extra in the back. And granted, if you're a drifter, it's wonderful. Now in these episodes, he and I usually talk to you about a car, and in Inside the MotoMan Studio, we talk to you about the people behind the car. However, we have decided to take a moment to point out some of the people behind this car, or really the entire brand, and you have met them 8 years ago in our first ever deep dive inside of a design studio. That was the Hyundai Design Studio, otherwise known as HACHI, Hyundai America Technical Center, here in Irvine, California. And you met a number of people, but two people I want to point out in particular. One is John Krotesky, who was the design manager of that project way back in the day, the Detroit Auto Show concept for 2011. And then there was Bradley Arnold, who he won the sketch for the interior of that vehicle. And in that episode, it was actually 2 episodes, I said to you 8 years ago, these two people would be going places. Well, here I have been proven right. John is now running the entire Genesis studio here in the US. And Brad, he is now a design manager on Genesis product vehicles. Not just that, the two of them are so good at design, they teach design at like the Harvard of the design world, Art Center here in Pasadena, California. Okay, so a couple of notes, fuel economy, and we discussed this in that Living with the Volvo S90 episode. You remember how Ford talked about the EcoBoost, and this is great technology, and you get everything, the best of both worlds, the fuel economy. Well, that's crap, because if you put your foot into it, like we've been doing throughout this entire episode, the fuel economy is going to drop by a lot. Here, more so than I would have liked, I'm doing an average of 13.1 as I aggressively drive this thing around the snake here in Malibu. But around town, even there, I've been doing anywhere between 14.5 and 16. Now that is indeed lower than what the folks at both Genesis as well as the US government say in terms of fuel economy. It's not far off, and I'll admit I'm really putting my foot into this thing because I'm trying to have some fun with it. But at the end of the day, the point is, V6 turbo, it's not the city on the hill of fuel economy. It's all about you and what you demand of the engine. Did we tell him? What do you think? Okay, he wants me to tell you. So full disclosure, if you guys reach out to us via like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or even email, and you ask us questions like, should I choose between this or that luxury sedan or sports sedan, or asking us for a suggestion of a luxury sedan or a sports sedan, whether it's new or used, we have always, and I mean always, included this on the list. And yeah, we're cheapskates and we love the value proposition, but it's more than that. There's substance, because if I haven't told you before, I'm going to tell you again, this has a suspension that is tuned by Lotus. That's what makes it better than other cars in a value proposition, and what makes this something you want, not something you need. Now all of a sudden the folks at Genesis have finally come and blessed it with a proper engine, which makes the proposition, I would argue, even better. Now granted, he's stretching because he's so excited, but yes, it's more expensive, but now it's a better vehicle. So it still stays high on our list, because you take this at what, $56,000, compare it to an E-Class or a BMW that is comparably equipped. Remember that 4-cylinder 530 we drove in DC? That was $20,000 more than this, and that was a 4-cylinder. And this actually, I think, is equipped even a bit better than that car. So when you're thinking about that kind of a delta, it makes the equation even better. So the reality is, we like this more. Now we need to turn around to you guys. And we need to understand and think of this as like a straw poll. Does the extra twin turbo, and it's not so much that it's more powerful than the V8, it's just a better package, does that move the needle for you? Because I know there are certain people that gotta have that BMW badge, gotta have the Mercedes badge. Would the better engine now with the Lotus tuning, would it move the needle for you? and why? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV on Word, MotoManTV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, we want to leave you with a fun fact. And the fun fact is this. For the first time ever on one of these shoots, I was told how to dress by the boss man here. He wanted me to wear a shirt that matches not the car, but his eyes. Until we see you next time, bis später.